All right, welcome everyone to Mobile Apps and Accessibility by Digital Accessibility by WeCo. Please note the information found in this presentation includes tips based upon the experiences and opinions of Digital Accessibility by WeCo staff and should not be construed as legal advice. Regarding the development and implementation of digital accessibility practices, it is advisable to seek the advice of qualified legal counsel. The information in this presentation is the property of the Wehrman Collaborative, LLC. Please ask us before distributing this information by contacting us at accessinfo@theweco.com. Thank you. And just as an accessibility note, this presentation includes audio description for non-visual users as part of the narration. And this slide shows the title of the presentation and includes WeCo's logo and the international, and the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, or IAAP, member logo. The WeCo logo is repeated on all of the slides in this presentation as well. Your instructors today are WeCo Accessibility Specialist Tyler Malone and myself, Communications Coordinator Ellen DeCesar. And this slide includes photos of Tyler and myself. First, a bit about who we are. WeCo is a company of digital accessibility professionals with a mission, putting you in touch with subject matter experts, or SMEs, who live with disabilities. We are members of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals and provide our own rigorous training requirements for our specialists. This slide includes the IAAP logo, and it shows a WeCo accessibility specialist using screen magnification software in an accessibility audit with the words, "Because simulations can't replace human experience." And a little bit about what we do at WeCo. WeCo offers manual accessibility audit services that can help your team understand which areas of your project do not meet accessibility requirements. We also provide customized recommendations on how to fix the issues, and our testing and recommendations are based on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as the WCAG. WeCo also offers usability testing services, which provide keen insights into how our testers living with disabilities view your project by having them complete tasks to verify that your website or software truly works for users living with disabilities. WeCo testers all live with one or more disabilities that fall within at least one of the 4 primary disability groups: cognitive, mobility, hearing, and sight. And WeCo offers various consulting packages and training options on topics relating to accessibility and usability. And finally, our new WeCollege e-learning portal provides on-demand accessibility training courses for both individuals and enterprises. And on this side is a close-up of hands using a Braille laptop. Today, we'll cover the following topics. We'll talk about the differences between desktop and mobile accessibility needs for users with disabilities. We'll go over the top 3 things your team can do to ensure mobile accessibility on your platforms. And finally, we will provide some resources you can check out for more information about accessibility. We will be answering questions at the end of the webinar, but please feel free to enter questions into the chat at any time during the presentation. And this slide includes a photo of 3 people listening to a presentation.
We're going to start things off by going through some of the differences between accessibility needs for a desktop environment and a mobile environment. Some of the common differences between desktop and mobile layout are screen size, content and control positioning, and portrait versus landscape screens. Let's take a closer look at each of these. This slide includes a photo of somebody interacting with a digital tablet device. First, we'll evaluate the differences between mobile and desktop screen sizes. Mobile devices have limited screen space in comparison to desktop. A smaller screen means that the user can see less information at once. It also pushes more of the content below the fold, the part of the screen we have to scroll to in order to see content. This forces users to scroll through content more often, so more repetitive tasks are involved in interacting with the interface. Smaller screens also increase the number of interactions total that a user must execute in order to navigate. This can cause undue fatigue to users with low fine motor skills. Or for those of us who use modified mouses or modified keyboards, to navigate a web page. On this slide, we're showing the ada.gov homepage in both a mobile and a desktop view. The mobile view is smaller, so it condenses the content and pushes some text off the screen. Chelsea was one of WeCo's users living with an intellectual disability. She tested for us exclusively using an iPad or an iPhone. We learned through working with her that she preferred the simplified layout of content on the small mobile views. This is one thing to consider about offering the same experience across a mobile and a desktop device. On this slide, we're showing Chelsea wearing a Santa hat while holding her tablet at a desk. Next, let's discuss content and control positioning between mobile and desktop. Desktops often have spread out multi-column designs. Navigation menus can be expanded or static. User interfaces are able to take advantage of wider displays in order to show more content and avoid becoming cluttered. Mobile environments are generally in a single column layout, and they have to very strictly prioritize where controls are and how content is displayed in order to avoid overpacking small screens. Designers should think very carefully about how they position controls and content within mobile screens to take best advantage of the real estate, because users living with disabilities often rely on predictable layouts and designs in order to navigate products confidently. This is especially important for users living with cognitive and visual disabilities. And on this slide, we're showing the ada.gov website in a mobile view again. Note that the mobile view has the navigation bar removed. Instead, you can view the full navigation menu by clicking a button to expand it. This saves screen space without removing content. The final layout consideration is portrait versus landscape screens. Most desktop displays tend towards a spread out landscape view. The opposite of true is mobile devices, as mobile devices are generally held in a portrait orientation. That being said, some users living with disabilities do actually benefit from a robust landscape presentation. Designers are encouraged to take advantage of landscape modes where possible, such as on iPads and other tablets. Increased horizontal space allows us to enlarge content controls and have more robust views and more cleanly defined visual structure. On this slide, we're showing the same ada.gov photo as on previous slides, with both a portrait and a landscape view on a mobile device. For our visual viewers, what are some differences? Well, oh yeah. For our visual viewers, what are some differences you see between when we change between the portrait view and the landscape view? Feel free to unmute your mic or provide an answer in chat.
Tyler, there is one message in the chat, just a request to have you speak a little more slowly.
Oh, okay, sure. Thank you.
But no questions yet.
All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to jump to the next slide. Touch targets are parts of the slide, or touch targets are part of the screen with which a user can interact. They include all sorts of content and controls, including buttons, links, and even some images and multimedia. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, recommend that we maintain a desktop pixel size of 44 by 44 pixels. And the physical recommended touch target size is about 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. It's good to represent touch target sizes in physical terms instead of just by pixel measurements, because there's different densities between screens, and having a physical representation allows us to evaluate how a finger or a pointer is actually going to interact when it's selecting something. For users living with visual and motor disabilities in particular, ensuring large enough touch targets allows those users to be able to more easily interact with touch targets and identify them against content or background structure. We're showing a magnifying glass, which has a search button with a red outline. The outline represents the size of the touch target's outline. The sides and top are labeled 44 by 44 pixels or 1 by 1 centimeters. The methods we use to interact with desktop versus mobile environments also differ quite a bit. Where desktop environments mostly use pointers and keyboards for controls, mobile devices often have different kinds of pointers or touch interactions, and sometimes also include complex touch-based interactions. Gestures can present unique challenges for users living with mobile disabilities, which for users who don't have strong control of their hands, arms, or upper body. Mobile devices also benefit from an additional suite of hardware sensors. We have our camera, we can gyroscope to shake with, and other sensors which we can use to interact with the device. A camera can scan payment methods for a blind user. Shaking or tapping the back of a device can allow a user with a motor disability to activate controls. Haptics, which are touch-based feedback, such as vibrations and flashes of light, can allow for increased interaction for deaf users. And this slide shows a person browsing on a digital tablet with a laptop in the background. It's important to consider not just the differences between desktop and mobile platforms, but also differences between different mobile platforms. Each platform tends to provide its own set of mobile accessibility tools with its own sets of priorities. This makes reviewing documentation especially important for, as developers know, documentation is going to specify what's going on in the specific platform. A lot of the stuff is going to differ in how you implement it across, say, iOS or Android. At this point, you may be asking yourself how you can possibly design for accessibility if everything is so platform dependent. Although it's important to understand the accessibility features specific to your platform, there are also a lot of accessibility practices that we can implement across any platform that are just good best practices in general.
All right, so next we'll talk about 3 things your team can do to improve mobile accessibility on your platform. Responsive design allows web page content to fit on a smaller mobile screen without overlapping, just as it would on a desktop screen. Where responsive design can go wrong is when objects and information appear to collide or merge, making it difficult to understand what they're trying to tell us. The image on the left of this slide shows what the current ada.gov homepage looks like on a desktop screen, like what we saw before. And on the right, we're showing the same web page on a mobile screen. Notice that the content is simplified and condensed, but nothing gets cut off or overlaps. On this slide, the image on the left of this shows the homepage of the previous ada.gov that is currently archived. On the right, we're showing 2 mobile views of this page, and the first is what you see when you first open the web page on a mobile device, while the other is what you see if you zoom in on the content. So taking a look at these 2 mobile versions of this website, what are some immediate problems that you see when comparing the mobile view to the desktop view? Feel free to send over your thoughts in the chat box or unmute yourself if you'd prefer to share that way. And just to repeat that as you're thinking, so just some immediate problems you see with the way that the desktop site translates to the mobile sites.
It would require a lot of moving around while magnified to find different parts of the screen. And if you're unable to do that, you're unable to access that information.
Yeah, that is a great point. It is a lot of scrolling around on that screen to find the things that you'd need to see. Thank you, Caroline. Is there any other notes anyone wants to make? Anything else you notice?
Just hard to overall navigate where you want to be on that website when you can only see one part of it at a time.
That is definitely true. Yes, it is also very cluttered just in general, so that definitely makes it difficult to navigate. Well, thank you. I'll move on to the next slide. Here are a few more examples of how design elements may be lost when the user moves from an iPad to an iPhone. Landscapes or portrait mode may not be available. Text, graphics, and controls may be more difficult to locate in either zoomed or unzoomed modes, as we saw in that previous example. And some app features may be missing or disabled. These issues can instantly render an app unusable for many users living with disabilities. Our next tip for creating accessible mobile environments is to let users customize the appearance and functionality of their mobile device, as they know what works best for themselves. Some useful customizations are light and dark mode toggles, text resizing, and multimedia feedback, such as notifications that make a sound and vibrates your phone. And are there any other accessibility features on your mobile device that it provides? Feel free to unmute or share in the chat box if there's anything you can think of. If not, I can repeat the question for sure. So any accessibility features that your mobile device can provide, such as these examples like light or dark mode toggles, text resizing, multimedia feedback, so both audio and like vibrations that you feel on your phone. And if not, that's completely okay. Just thought I'd ask so people can share anything that they've noticed. I know a lot of newer phones have more accessibility features built in.
I mean, there's like infinite customizations available on at least iPhones, like in terms of navigating them and setting up your own like touch controls and like I don't know how to describe it, like patterns that your finger moves in,
Yeah, for
voiceover.
sure. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, just a few other that we could think of were turning off animations like automatic GIFs playing or audio balance adjustment. So adjusting what each ear the sound sounds like on the headphones. But on this slide, we're showing a dark mode toggle with the moon icon and a light mode toggle with the sun icon. And lastly, most of the accessibility considerations on desktop carry over to mobile. So we're going to explore some quick improvements that you can use on all of your digital products. So first, add alt text to graphics and images. This is helpful to users with sight and cognitive disabilities. Label controls such as buttons on forms and video start and stop controls. Also label form fields to ensure users who can't see them can still detect them. And adding captions, audio description, and transcripts to videos allow people living with visual and auditory disabilities to receive the same information as people without disabilities. And people who use assistive technology such as screen readers rely on semantic structure to navigate content. So in other words, to define what semantic structure is, basically it's using HTML elements to structure navigation menus, footers, and other sections of content. You should also divide your content into pages to reduce the processing demand on mobile screen readers, improve navigation of content, and help reduce fatigue for users when completing multi-step processes. Lastly, don't let your product hog processing powers, and doing so can cause delays for people who rely on assistive technology. On this slide, we're showing a digital illustration of a pencil and a paper with a checklist on it. At this time, we'd like to open things up for questions and discussion. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask about mobile accessibility? I see from Caroline, what do you mean by processing power? Tyler, do you have a good definition for?
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about processing power, we are actually talking about the ability for a device's CPU, central processing unit, to process the overlay of the screen reader or other assistive technology. And a lot of mobile devices, we're looking at very, very optimized devices, which are designed to carry out a lot of functions simultaneously. So if content is taking up too much loading space on a device, the assistive technology is sometimes deprioritized. So it'll take a really, really long time for it to load. Or if the assistive technology has to itself scan the content before telling a user what's there or interacting with that content, then that's all additional loading that has to go on in the phone or tablet. So it needs additional memory and additional processing in order to handle that. And making sure that your app is very well optimized and very clean and neat, runs very fast and light, is a good way of kind of tipping your hat to and allowing for assistive technology to do that extra processing that it needs to do.
Great, thank you, Tyler. Does that help answer that question? All right. Oh, perfect. I see the thumbs up there. Anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, I can, oh yeah, I see Caroline, do you have a question?
I do, but I don't want to hog all the time if other people have questions.
Oh, no worries.
But I was just curious when you were talking about simplifying layout and stuff for mobile display appearance versus desktop appearance. I was wondering if you're able to speak more to that in terms of like how to decide what gets simplified and how. And this is coming from a place where I'm currently having some input on the design appearance of a desktop versus mobile screen. So just, yeah, if you can expand on that. Sorry, it's not a very clear question.
Yeah, for sure. I can actually, okay, perfect. I'll bring back maybe an example on the slides, but yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Sure. Yeah, so in a general sense, when we're talking about simplifying, we always still need to prioritize the content we need to convey. So when we're looking at a mobile versus a desktop screen, we want to make sure that superfluous or decorative information is deprioritized in favor of making sure that there is a very clean structure of navigation and that all the essential information is still provided. So when we look at these two views, we have on the left, it's much more spread out and wide, and on the right we have it's much more compact. And so when we implement our responsive design, we might make a decision to have a decorative image rather than going down the column, so it's showed either after or before the content, we might just take that image out and go, this is nice to have, but people really don't need to see that. And we keep in mind that an image can have, multiple megabytes of loading time. So it's going to take up quite a bit of the buffer in the browser for a mobile device. So we might just take that out. But the text, the title of the web page, the headings, the descriptions of the content, those are all essential. So we're still going to want to preserve those when we're simplifying our view. Does that answer the question? I can go into more detail too.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah, I could listen to you talk about this stuff like all day, but that was really helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Great question. I will head back to that other screen. Anything else? And if not, or if you think of anything, feel free to send it in the chat box. I just have a few more things to go over, but definitely feel free to send it in the chat if you have anything else you'd like to ask. So as we wrap things up, we're just going to give you some accessibility resources you can use. We are pleased to announce that the expanded versions of our great webinar classes like this one are available in our new WeCollege accessible e-learning portal. The same experts and specialists who support our accessibility mission have come together to offer courses on a variety of accessibility topics. If you're interested, you can contact WeCo Client Relations at accessinfo@theweco.com to learn more. This slide shows a woman seated on a couch wearing a headset and typing on a laptop. If you'd like to learn more from WeCo, please visit us on the web at theweco.com. Our website includes a free accessibility review, so understand how accessible you are now and ways that you can become more accessible with our free accessibility review. So just go to our website and sign up for our free review on the center of our homepage. We also have a free accessibility library on our website, an events page, which includes information on all of our upcoming webinars, workshops, meetups, and other events, blog posts on a variety of accessibility topics, and more. You can also reach out directly to the WeCo accessibility team, again, through the email accessinfo@theweco.com that Patty sent in the chat. Thanks, Patty. Or by giving us a call at 855-849-5050, extension 1. WeCo provides you with free and easy ways to stay on top of our accessibility blog, and email quick tips. A few times each month, you'll be notified of our latest blog entries related to accessibility and how people living with disabilities interact with IT. And our blog entries cover everything from accessibility experiences of our testers living with particular disabilities to the latest legislative updates. Our quick tip emails provide you with technical accessibility tips in a short email message, complete with an informative video and to demonstrate easy ways to keep your websites and software accessible. These tools make it easy for you to keep accessibility top of the mind and to remember to implement what you learned today. And on this slide, an email symbol is shown. All right, thank you for joining us. Oh, I see another comment in the chat box. Another question, if possible, definitely. I've seen different feelings about buttons like back to top. Do you recommend a button like that, especially on a mobile that would require a lot of scrolling or not? Tyler, do you have?
Yeah, I think based on my experience in usability testing, I would prefer to have back to top links. I would do them as links similar to a skip to where you have a same page anchor. I wouldn't use a button. That might fall under the wrong role for the element. But on mobile views in a browser, I would definitely use back to top. If you think that the content is too long, that's the sort of thing you would want to have a user testing group give you feedback on probably. But it's safe to include them as long as they work. When they don't work, we don't like them because it makes it very difficult to interact, and you're expecting that interaction, it's not working out. But If the content's long and it's in a browser, yeah, I tend not to prefer them personally in apps because there's generally other ways to navigate through. You really should be paginating the content, especially in a mobile view, so that you can avoid having really long scrolls of content. But when it's necessary, it's okay to use.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Tyler. Does that answer your question, Carolyn? All right, perfect. Thank you. Another great question. Anything else anyone would like to share or ask? All right, if not, again, please feel free to reach out to WeCo's client relations team with questions at any time. Access info@theweco.com or 855-849-5050 extension 1. Thank you for joining us today. We've enjoyed sharing this time with you.